Pushkin.
Albert Hammond Jr. first rose to prominence as the lead guitarist of The Strokes, a band at the forefront of New York City's indie rock renaissance in the early aughts. The Strokes released their debut album, Is This It?, in 2001 to huge commercial success. 2 decades, 5 albums, and a Grammy later, The Strokes have become a modern successor to the bands that influenced them: The Cars, The Stooges, The Velvet Underground. In 2007, Albert Hammond Jr. launched his solo career, putting his songwriting and abilities as a frontman to the test. He's now released 5 albums of his own, including his latest, Melodies On Hiatus, which came out just a couple of months ago. It's a double album that he co-wrote with Canadian singer Simon Wilcox and features collaborations with GoldLink and Matt Helders from the Arctic Monkeys. On today's episode, Albert Hammond Jr. and I discuss his parents' recent divorce and how, despite the fact that he's in his early 40s, he was still dramatically impacted by it. Albert also reminisces about his past life as a champion roller skater who was once scouted by Kristi Yamaguchi's Olympic ice skating coach. And he also explains why he's never been a fan of everyone else's favorite bands, Radiohead and Led Zeppelin. This is Broken Record, liner notes for the digital age. I'm Justin Richmond. Here's my conversation with Albert Hammond Jr. When did you record the new solo record, Melodies On Hiatus?
Man, I thought it was going to come out a lot sooner. I started in 2019, right at the end of touring my last record, Francis Trouble. I had no idea of making a double album. It wasn't like I want to make 2 records, and all I thought was I can start now. And because I knew I wanted to deconstruct the band and I wanted to keep it, meaning like the record before that was a live band in a room in a studio like this, a studio I had upstate. It was very like studio live takes band. And
upstate
this one,
New York?
Upstate New York, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I think you live in New York long enough, you just call it upstate.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just like, I love plugging my guitar in direct, even if it's just to like an Apollo. I mean, I would plug it into a board. I love that too, or just like a Neve like that over there. But I was like, let's just do it all like we do the demos, drum machines, kind of play all the different parts with instruments. And we're just trying to create a vibe for each song to then play for people to be like, this is where I want it to go.
Right.
Help me get it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it started in 2019. My parents were getting divorced and my mom was in this rental right by the Beverly Center. Very, very cool rental. Yeah, just started there with my laptop.
But your parents just got divorced?
Well, when we were recording in 2017 here, they just started.
Wow.
But it was still happening in 2019. I think it ended. I think it took like 4 or 5 years. It was kind of ridiculous.
Wow. I was going to ask you, because I guess, old man seemed like an obvious jumping off point.
It's so funny because some songs come, they just kind of like lay themselves out. I remember I was at this whole time, 2016, 17, 18, I was staying a lot in my parents' apartment here. They weren't here, and my life was a lot here. The Strokes were doing stuff. I had my solo manager and my label here, working with people, so it was just easy to come here. And I was just playing the guitar, and it kind of just like, it kind of came. I said, my old man, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of just had it. It wasn't intended to be a dig at him or anything. And then by the time I got to doing lyrics, and Simon Wilcox did lyrics, because by the time I got to 20 songs, I looked at all 20 and I was like, there's no way I'm going to finish these. This is too much work. I'd rather start from scratch.
But you knew you liked all 20.
Yeah, I knew. Well, by then it was like the album's a double album, but like I song titles, little lines here and there. Lyrics for me are last. So I sang all the songs, parts I knew I had melodies for, and ones I was searching, or if I wanted to change it a little bit, they'd still punch me in and I'd be like, oh, that's fine for them to be similar. Or this one should be a little different. Let me just kind of find it. Yeah. But you're just making shit up. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. What was cool was that Simon kept phrasing of mine that had I written lyrics, I wouldn't even have kept, because these were just like little rambling things I did. Like I was making stuff up on the spot. Maybe it's a mistake or you don't fit the words you want, but she was able to keep them in. And so there's something really magical in that. But yeah, Old Man is not about, it's not like a dig, going back to that. It's not a dig on my dad. It was quite the opposite. It's kind of like you just realize in life how your perspective changes over time.
Yeah.
You know, and like, so you see your parents and you're like a kid and you have all these feelings and thoughts and, you know, teenager, 20, and all of a sudden you end up being their age that you remember looking up at them. And then you're kind of like, oh, this is so strange. How did I get here? And how you're viewing stuff, but now they're older, so you can't see. So it's just this cycle of, you know, maybe we just have to be more gentle with everyone, just because we're all, you know, human beings and we make mistakes. And like, I feel like the more you judge, the more you end up doing the same things later on.
Yeah.
And so it was that kind of idea in there. And that's the other thing I would do with Simon, is that when I was doing it, she would have been like, you want to keep the word old man? Or maybe she even said like, I really like it. Let's keep it. And I was like, no, I wanted to keep it. It was very natural. It was the first thing that I sang when I was trying to find the melody. So
yeah,
it's kind of hard to change those words.
So how much of that did she write versus?
I would say she wrote the lyrics just because I said old man, or like if she kept a line or two of mine that I said that worked, everything is there.
Yeah.
By her hand, you know, like I wouldn't take that away from her. But the conversations that we had dictated sometimes where songs would go. And it was a definite point where I was like, it's not about fuck you to my dad. It's not like that at all. If anything, it's like, oh man, like all the times I said that and now I'm in your shoes when I would say that to you. And I'm like, I kind of get it. And you know, you did a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I appreciate it.
Were your parents getting divorced at that time?
Yeah, they were still, but it wasn't a dig at the...
But it must have spurred it, right? I mean, I just imagine.
Sure. It was definitely not, you know, divorce is, it's funny, divorce is not, I was 36 when they started. It wasn't any easier.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I'm 36, like I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
Felt it just as hard. Very weird. It's always weird when, it's the idea, like, never call the cops. Never get, as soon as you get other people involved in your stuff, you can't just talk it out.
Yeah.
You can never go back.
Yeah.
It's, you know, and that's what it was. I would get a lot of, the weirdest things I got is just, we were like a tripod of a family. My mom's from Argentina and my dad's from Gibraltar.
Which is the craziest place to be from.
Right, I know.
It's
people
normal
don't
for
even,
you.
they're like, Gibraltar? Where the hell is that?
The Rock?
Yeah. Living Daylights, James Bond, the opening scene is in Gibraltar. If you want to know what it looks like, it's just a giant rock off the coast of Spain, though it's British. And they're angry about that. But yeah, so far away. And they met in Argentina and they moved to LA. And I grew up here. So I didn't grow up with like, yes, a family every couple of years when they'd come visit for 3 months.
Right.
Not like cousins or aunts who live in the same city. So we're like a tripod. So that interaction still existed even in the divorce. So that was like the hard part, was like, even though I was not getting involved or I was just trying to help out where I could, it's going to affect me.
Yeah.
And anger will come out from different people and it's going to, you know, I'm in the middle, regardless of if they notice or not. I imagine some things came from it, but that's like God, writing songs are so funny. There's so many different spots. And you might even have one line that means something to someone, but the whole song is a different meaning.
Meaning like it's not...
Just not so like, I'm going to write about how much I like or dislike this person.
Yeah.
Even if you do that, you might venture off and have a whole story or a line works. I mean, it's a combination of music and words. So sometimes stuff that's really simple is more powerful. The music to me is what I want to have move you. And then the words on top are like a cherry. But these conversations I had with Simon were like amazing. We would have hour-long conversations about what I felt, where I wanted it to go, or what she thought, or we would disagree or agree, or like it would be amazing. But like, remember an old man, the second verse just wasn't right. And then she'd came up with the bullet wounds and self-defense. Even like in Never Stop, she had this story. It didn't feel like that to me, but she had this story about this older person who just like never, this character who never stops, even though he hasn't made it. He doesn't care. I was like, sure, I guess try writing that. And I didn't connect with me. And then she sent me the lyrics and I was just like, this is so great, but this is not what I would have thought it would have been.
Did it ever connect with you at any point?
I mean, the lyrics connected with me when I sang them, for sure. I wouldn't have sang them. This is the first time I wrote with someone else. I didn't do anything that didn't fully connect
feel
with me.
Authentic.
You know? Yeah. It wasn't like, I just mean sometimes the way someone tells a story about where they're going to go, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I don't know what's in your head, but it's funny to not get it and then get something back and being like, well, whatever was in your head, it's not what I thought it was going to be, and this is amazing. But yeah, no, it wasn't like, just write lyrics. I had thought I was going to like try to get a bunch of friends to help me write lyrics, but it's a lot harder to get people to help you out than you might think.
What kind of trouble did you come across with that?
No, nothing. Just
not
people,
trouble per se.
Yeah, what kind of trouble? Oh, I got in a lot of trouble. I get in a lot of trouble, but it's not from asking people to write songs. Such a troublemaker. I don't know. This was just like an idea. I thought like I would ask certain bands that I'm friends with, if and people who I like, they write lyrics, if they wanted to give it a go. But it's hard. People
you did ask?
I did.
Yeah, okay.
Everyone was really nice, but I think they were all like in the middle of records, or sometimes people wanted to do it, but I think maybe they wanted to change the melody of it, which I wouldn't have minded, but I've been like, okay, well, now we're working on the song very differently. You know what I mean? I think it was just the timing of it, because I was just recording, right? I was recording. I could still be recording. I was in such a finding voice memos and just like creating songs. I was in such a little heaven.
And you were sort of doing the Strokes. With the new Abnormal was like gestating too, right?
We'd done a little bit, and then we started the promo tour, and then the pandemic happened. And then Gus would just fly over. Gus Ober, he's my best friend. He does front house for the Strokes. I was pretty loose during the pandemic, I'll be honest.
No precautions for you.
Well, no, I always just thought, no, I mean, there was precautions. I mean, he flew on the plane, and I guess you have to wear a mask, but he just came over.
Precautions because you...
He just came over, and then we just started working. I mean, my wife was pregnant. I don't know. We would still exercise and stuff like that. I always feel like, I find it hard to believe. What happened there was they tell you what's happening, but no one ever tells you how to build your own immune system.
It was a weird thing to navigate.
It was very weird.
Did working on music though, I mean, your wife was pregnant. So there was
she was. Well, she got pregnant in June, and we started in March, right?
And first kid, right?
First and only kid.
First kid.
No more kids.
Divorcing.
No more kids. One is, I'm grateful for her. She changed my life. I love her dearly, but I don't have the capacity for
it's a lot
for it.
Requires a lot of bandwidth. I have two.
You have two?
Yeah. My eldest really liked your solo record.
Oh.
She had me add it to her playlist.
Is it, how old are they?
7 and 4. Just turned 7 and 4.
Mine just a little over 2.
Yeah,
so you're in a different spot. It was terrifying at first, though. My God. You know, some people come out and they're like, I was born to be a parent. I was like a PTSD, like, I was like, what happened? My life's completely changed.
Yeah.
I love you, but it's just everything's really different.
Do you feel like it's balanced out?
It's balancing out for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, anything, it makes sense. Any creation in the universe is through destruction. You know what I mean? Like even how we're here, it was through things banging into each other and blowing up.
Right.
So it makes sense that to create something like new life. I mean, it's amazing to have seen it. You know, it must be something that it, you know, just an extreme thing.
Your kid destroyed your life.
Yeah, I mean, it just needs to it destroys it in the sense that it's meant to, and you're meant to build up deeper and better, and your heart's richer for it. And it's like, so you can't be the same person. It would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And just to see life take shape, I started to think that maybe personality traits and little things you do are all in there.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with what I was saying or doing. It's just from generations passed on, and who knows which part she has in different people, but
sometimes that's scary.
Sure.
When I think about it, I'm like, damn, does she have some of my uncle in there? Like,
I mean, I'm
shit.
sure she's just like, I'm sure they have different, probably even ancestors you didn't even meet.
Yeah.
You ever like have like your friends or friends' brothers, and you're like, man, it doesn't even seem like part of the family, or like their personality was just so different than the rest of the family.
Friends who were twins, and you just couldn't believe.
Dude, I was a twin. It passed away at 5 months, but I was so curious that not to bring a downer.
Wow.
You're like, oh, but yeah, I always feel like there was something. I'm always so curious about what my life would have been like had I had a twin.
Were you able to glean from your parents how similar or not you were in the 5 months? Like, were you temperamentally?
Well, no, it was 5 months in. Like, my mom didn't know she had twins. And it was 5 months, but it still looked like a little human. Supposedly, when it came out, my dad. This might be a little graphic, but my dad took it out of the toilet and they brought it to the hospital, and they said it looked like a little kid. And I always questioned this, but the doctor was like, yeah, you lost the baby. Those are just phantom feelings. And like a few weeks later, she found out she was still pregnant with me. And I remember knowing that as a kid, but as a kid, you don't like really think what that must feel like for your parents.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was 36 and I was like, man, that must have been weird to have, I think, is it called stillborn? To like have a kid come out like that, and like that's heavy. That's
Super
not a light
heavy.
thing. And then I didn't realize how close you were. So much so that the nail and part of the other placenta was on mine when it came out.
God.
Like one of the things. And so like it made me like it made me cry, to be honest. Because I was just like imagining just being that close to someone. There must be some kind of energy in there, when you're like being made.
Yeah. I know at the time you weren't thinking about how your parents felt, but it's probably because it was super overwhelming for you too, or did you really not even?
Like when I was a kid?
When you were a kid?
I mean, it's hard to remember. Yeah, maybe it was too much. I always thought it was just like it was just a story. I heard it so much since I was little, so it just became like it's part of my story.
Part of your story.
And then when I was older, I was just like, man, this story is like a superhero story. And that's when I did on the record before, I was like, what a cool way to create an alter ego.
Yeah.
Is through that story. And then this album is like the deconstruction of accepting. I made a record where I accepted being the front person, because all the records beforehand were just like, I really just want to be in a band. I just like writing songs.
Yeah.
They're just exercises so I could try to write more songs in the band, or just be a better songwriter in general. And on the fourth one, I was like, okay, I just have to accept that it's just my name.
So before you thought about it as exercise for the Strokes.
Yeah, the first album was just like, when I made my first album, Yours to Keep, I was like, if I don't finish something and it's just done, like I didn't think I was going to tour it or anything. If I don't like finish it, I'll never grow. Because I'll always be like, well, it's just kind of a demo. I can change it. Everyone always like, that's just a rough mix.
Yeah.
I'm changing everything. So
it felt good to commit to.
I just felt like I needed it. I felt like I had stuff that I'd been nurturing since my late teenage years mixed with stuff that I'd done after I joined a band. So I needed to get rid of it to move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wouldn't be the songwriter I am today unless I had done that. But I just mean I didn't want to release a solo record and be like, I'm Albert Hammond Jr., look at me. Like I just always wanted to be in a band, that's all.
We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more from Albert Hammond Jr. We're back with more from Albert Hammond Jr. So you feel like a guitar player. Like that feels like you.
I just like writing songs. I didn't even feel like, I feel like my guitar player now, because that's where the role, like when I fell in love with music and guitar, I never, and it wasn't like, oh, I like Jimi Hendrix, I want to play lead. I was just like, I like Buddy Holly. I like Roy Orbison. I just wanted to sing and write songs. It wasn't until I was in a band that I don't know why it didn't click with me, like guitar parts. It should have maybe, or I didn't understand it. I guess I fell in love more with the song than like the instrument. And it wasn't until like I felt like I had to, when I was in a band, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to, even when I was first playing some leads and early stroke stuff, I was like, I'm doing this? Like, wow, like it was so strange. When I first started writing songs, it wasn't to like make an album. It was just to like be a contributor in what we were doing, you know? It's always been a struggle. I love performing. I used to roller skate when I was a kid, so I feel like I've been performing since before. In 9, 10, 11, 12, I would, skate in front of a lot of people.
Skating's back. Are you diving back in? Are you getting back into it?
Well, no, I did like, my skating that I did was, like figure skating and ice skating?
Yeah.
I did that alone with a partner.
On ice skates though, or on
roller skates? They wanted me to do, it's so funny, what was her name? Kristen Yamaguchi?
Yeah, Yamaguchi.
Her coach wanted to coach me for the Olympics because his thing was like, he was like, I can teach how you can do everything you need to do to learn skates and stuff like that. What I can't teach is like what you have. I had like posture or like grace, and like I could like move. I think my dad wanted me to ice skate too because there's money in ice skating. There's no money in roller skating.
Incredible.
I was like, but I don't love ice skating like I love roller skating. I mean, it was fun. It was very competitive. I liked winning. I just remember that. I remember not being nervous, and I liked winning. I was like practicing every day, like 3-4 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then one day at 12, I had like a hairline fracture on my ankle. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Was it like your parents being like, you have to go to
Definitely
practice,
not.
or you wanted to?
Definitely not. You can't, I don't think you could push someone into wanting to do that if the person didn't want to do it. You might, every day falling down, getting up, falling down. Like you just hours and hours. It's the same thing with an instrument, right? I mean, people ask for advice on guitar, and it's just like, you're going to have many moments where you're going to want to quit. And it's the people that push through those moments that get better. That's all it is.
Do you still have those moments where you want to quit guitar? Like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Like, I love tennis, and I was watching tennis, and I was angry. I was like, the number one tennis player has a coach teaching him more stuff, even though he's number one. Yeah. I would love a guitar teacher to get me over hurdles. I have weaknesses on guitar. I'm a very slow musician. I'm not a studio musician. My ear is slow picking stuff up. I get like stage fright in playing music with the band or other people, and like stuff I won't know or just not doing stuff well. I'll rehearse the shit out of something so that I can perform it on stage where it looks like you can't imagine the person not belonging there. Yeah. And I love that. I love that part of entertaining, but the unknown like scares me. Wow. So like I'd love to strengthen that ability. I mean, to come up with stuff for me, even like guitar parts I do on this album, I mean, I have to play so much bad stuff to find the good stuff, like embarrassingly so, like for like hours. And then sometimes it's quicker and sometimes it's not, but it's like, it's hard for me to have that confidence to do it in other settings.
Do you have days then where it's like really working? Like it almost comes scarily easy, like ever?
Nothing ever feels easy, but I definitely have days where I get enough confidence where I feel like maybe I'm not a mediocre piece of shit. Like maybe I actually am. I remember turning, I think it was to my wife, and I was like, after recording this, and I was like, maybe I can. I know how to write a song or something like that. I kept saying like, I've done it this many times. Like there's got to be something there, right? yeah, it's hard to, the creative world can be hard. You set your own boundaries and disciplines, and there's a lot of time to be just destructive. And there's a lot of times for that inner voice I've been working on for a long time is just, everyone has their inner voice. Yeah, it's a rough voice.
Your inner voice is rough.
Yeah. So it can be hard sometimes.
Why?
I honestly I do want to find someone to like help me get over some hurdles. I'm really good at being told what to do, and I'll go do it. and do it. But if I have to like figure out, like it's like reading the instructions, and like you tell me if I do A, B, and C, I'll get to D, then I'll do A, B, and C. But if I have to guess that A, B, and C gets to D, and 2 months have gone by and I haven't gone to D, am I doing it wrong?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with food and working out. When someone told me what I had to do to achieve certain things that I wanted to and why it works, it's great.
Yeah.
I'll just follow what you're saying and I'll get to, but if I had to like guess, I'd probably give up because I wouldn't see the results. I would feel like I was doing it wrong.
Well, how did you early, when you first picked up guitar, like how did you get through that?
I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe early on was different because it's different and the same. So I was still pretty private about it. I wasn't like, I had friends or people in my school who were like, I play music or I write songs, and they'd play you their songs. Like I never did that. I wouldn't sit down and like play someone a bunch of my songs.
You weren't at like lunch playing Freebird.
No, but there's people who were like, oh, I wrote this, and I'd do it at like what's it called? I don't even remember, but you'd have like class,
the quad or whatever.
Yeah, school meetings, and someone would be like, oh, and
the assemblies.
Yeah, assembly, and this guy wants to play the song. Like that was not me.
Yeah.
Like, not that I didn't want to be like that. It wasn't like I was like, but I just like, I didn't feel confident like that. I was just like, oh.
Well, and then when you're not confident, the part of you is like, fuck that kid.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to be that kid. Fuck him.
Well, you kind of gauge. You're like, does everyone? It's like, it's good too because you're just like, what don't people like about it? Because he has confidence and able to do it. So what is rubbing the wrong way? And so you learn something from that. I don't know. I started playing. It takes a while to get bar chords.
Mm-hmm.
I stuck with it. I really learned a lot when I joined the band. I became like, I feel like I've discovered myself amongst the other four. They're all very talented and quick and intense. I really like discovered what I liked and who I was in playing with them. And even in whatever songs that Julian wrote or parts that people had, or, learning to how you fit in, you can play an A bar chord and there's like, 3 or 4 other solid positions to play it in that are more exciting than that A bar chord. A bar chord works really well for a certain thing. Riff is happening, but then I found like different inversions, and I realized like inversions change everything.
Yeah.
Just, it opens up a whole new door. At first it was just like a third over like, like 3-5-1. And then piano inversion started coming in. And then that's like where I am now. I feel like those different inversions allow me to, they all come from being a little lazy. You don't have to move so much.
You can stay in with it.
You're like, oh, look, this minor here. And then there's this, the progressions of guitar are all right there. So it's like, I mean, not always, but it can lean itself to new sounds and stuff like that. So like, I think when I started, I didn't know what I was doing. Not that anyone else in the band knew it.
Yeah.
We all kind of like discovered knowing that together. I remember early on though, in LA, and first hearing Guided by Voices, and I was 16. And maybe it was like hearing that band that was like you said, how did you keep going? So I probably, 13, 14, maybe as young as 12, learning stuff, but like not really committed. 14, 15, you're more committed. It's like 9th grade. you're first getting stoned and life just changes and you hear music and you become a different person. It feels like overnight, and you watch movies and you're like, these people are incredible.
Movies.
Like, what am I doing? And I went to like a private school and just like, everyone's so boring. No offense to people in my school. It's just like, they're all so nice. I just mean like, and the conversation was always just like college, married, make money.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just felt like there had to be more to it than that.
Yeah.
It all felt like so planned out. I just remember like at 16, and then I Guided by Voices were like a band where I heard, and I know everyone talks about their low fidelity. I didn't listen to them like, oh, this is low fidelity. I just heard amazing melodies and songs and like words, and it hit me. It was like visceral music that hit my gut, that made me feel different as a person. Like I walked down the street with a different attitude.
Yeah.
And I think it's when you find stuff like that you feel like they're just game changers. You're like, I was just like, I will find a way. Doesn't matter. I don't need to be the kid at the assembly. I don't need to, I'll find my way.
Yeah. Once you found Guided by Voices, did similar sounds continue to excite you, or did you sort of go like, some people have an evolution where they discover something, they're like Guided by Voices, and then it's like, oh, like, well, they liked, I don't know, Susie and the Banshees or like whatever, and they go backwards, and then some people just keep going forward, or I don't know.
I definitely found people like that. I had a close friend named Matt Rivero who was like my slightly older, and he was like my style and music like icon. As he was like 18 and I was 16, and I just like looked up to him. He had the coolest hair, dressed in like these weird thrift suits, and I was just like, this guy's amazing. And yeah, he would show me stuff, and like it was amazing to see like the Modern Lovers. That band had the guitarist and keyboard and Talking Heads, and the drummer in the Cars. And so it's like, and you start going to that. You see Elvis Costello, and then like Nick Lowe, because he produced it, and you hear his songs, and you're just like, oh wow, he was like such an interesting songwriter. And then those songs are similar to like Squeeze. But those early time with like Guided by Voices was probably like, in that same world would be like Built to Spill. They were very moving for me. They covered Someday at Irving Plaza in like 2001 or 2.
Wow.
We came to see them, and they scribbled it from the set list, and we didn't see it, and we were like, oh, it's so weird that they were scribbling. I know they get stoned, and maybe they got weird, but and then they covered it, and it was like the best. Normally when someone covers a song, you're just like, thanks for ruining it. They did such an amazing job. It was like, I was like,
anything.
Julie and I were like crying at the show. It was so good.
They do everything great, man.
But yeah, just an amazing band, right? With like songs. Yeah, who else was in there? I mean, so many people. The Cure, the Cars, the Beatles, the Stones. But I also grew up with like Phil Collins and Elton John. When I was like 9, 10, I loved those songs. So I bet part of me still has those like big 80s songs deep inside me.
So yeah, man.
Like I don't find it cheesy. I think they're just like really good songs. Whitney Houston, like I'm just like, man.
Are you a Whitney fan?
Yeah.
I love Whitney Houston, man.
Yeah. Amazing voice. I mean, my God.
Amazing voice, and also like could go really big and like do like the I have an incredible voice thing, and could also just be sing a song straight and just fuck, you're so good,
Yeah, no, just incredible. Who else was around that time? I mean, you slowly build. I have like an encyclopedia of music. What's funny is that I got into music at different stages, right? Like I remember being like my early 30s, and I got into the Misfits.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like that's a band you find when you're like 15.
Yeah.
But like I feel like my 15 was like 31. Like I was like honestly, it was late to the game. Like in my early 30s, I was like, oh, I need something like this in my set list when I play. I need some like aggression like that. And I spent like a whole record trying to find my own versions of it. It's so, I didn't want to sound like the Misfits, but I liked the vibe that it was coming off, right? And so I mean, it's funny to have that delay because I did feel like, I don't know, it's something when you have like a teenage angst usually, and I had that like an angst in my early 30s.
Sometimes I rediscover my teenage angst. I don't know why. I was listening to a lot of your solo records and a lot of Strokes stuff in the last few days, and then for some reason on the way here, I don't know if it was because of listening to your music or what, but I just was compelled to put on Black Sabbath, which
so cool.
Oftentimes it just comes on and it's like cool, but I actually put it on this time, and I was like, fuck, I feel like fuck the world, like
there's such a cool, interesting band. I feel like sometimes they're like logo or what people think they are because time has passed and people have been inspired by them, but they're a very melodic band. And like the stuff is like not that distorted or dirty. It's like it's very straightforward. It's not theatrical. Maybe that's why it lasted the test of time a little more, because it's like, and he has he discovered early on his voice right away. So as soon as you hear it, you're just like, it's a hook in itself.
Yes.
Even on a solo stuff. Was Crazy Train,
solo.
Was that Randy Rhoads who's playing guitar?
Rhoads,
God, such a good guitar player.
Such a good guitar player.
I don't forget the lead stuff, because sometimes when it's like so much fire, it's like cool. I know you play very fast, but just like the verse licks that he's doing in there are like, I mean, I could just listen to that and that'd be enough. It'd be like, you have an amazing song. You don't need to play anything else. But no, he really got it. He knows his vocal sound.
It's funny, no one tried. A lot of people copied Black Sabbath, but it doesn't seem like anyone really tried to copy.
They did not.
Ozzy's thing, but
no,
that heavy guitar stuff with like Ozzy sometimes sounds like it could be.
I know, but if you took away the head,
song,
right? Exactly. Well, it doesn't like. That's where I feel like people got influenced by it, but then they took a part of it that I don't hear when I listen. When I listen to it.
Yeah. And even the drums, like the drums are really loose. Like they're cool. There's a lot of parts, but like it feels also loose and I don't know, jazzy, I guess.
It's very cool. They're a very cool band. I also got into later in life.
Yeah.
Just that happens. Like I also never a fan of Led Zeppelin.
To this day?
Just doesn't move me.
Wow.
Just like
no part of it.
I mean, they're all amazing musicians.
Right.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's just not something that I put on and I'm just like, it doesn't give meaning to me. Wow. I know people, they're like, wow, really? I'm like, I know. I've tried. I almost feel.
Is there a part of it that you don't like? Is there when you hear, is it you're like, oh, fuck, that annoys me or this?
I'm not a huge fan of the vocals.
Okay.
I mean, I think that all bands, even ones I don't, they got some great songs and I listen to parts and like they have it, but as a whole, like I don't like put it. There's a few bands that are like that. People are like blown away. Wow. I never really got into Pink Floyd. I love some of the guitar playing though, some of the solos. I would totally, the bends, the literal bends. That sounded like the Radiohead album, but like the way they would bend or do something, like I would like, ooh, I like that. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm definitely one that just because I don't like something wouldn't mean I wouldn't reference a drum pattern from Led Zeppelin and be like, oh, that's cool. Let's do something like that.
Yeah.
They're just, what I mean is don't like is like they never moved me like I was describing Guided by Voices where I like, it gave me attitude to walk around. I never felt that. I'm still waiting for the day. The Smiths, never got into them. Everyone's like, wow, really? Who is another one that everyone's kind of shocked by? Radiohead.
Fuck, man.
I know. Great. Radiohead has amazing songs.
I love these takes. This is
that I would listen to for sure, but I've never like put on one of their records and like
luxuriated in the sounds.
Yeah. There's definitely songs where I'm like,
is it the feeling?
I honestly have no clue. You think I want to be outside of that? I want to be on the inside. It's, to be super clear, I don't dislike. All these bands are incredible.
It's just your taste.
I would be honored to be in any of these bands or even come close as a musician.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with that.
You don't think you're better
I like parts and songs of theirs. All of it. It's just, it's funny that they're bands that have created something for other people that I didn't get, that didn't happen to me yet. That's all. That's the only thing I'm saying. Like,
did you hate the Misfits until you heard them? Or
I didn't hate. I didn't say I hated anyone.
Excuse me. Let me not put words.
I hadn't heard of the Misfits. No.
Okay.
When I was a teenager, I didn't know the Misfits. I literally discovered them. Like, who is this band? This is amazing.
What song? Do you remember what song it was?
Last Caress. And I was just like, how did I not know this? And then I proceeded to write like 3 or 4 demos that was like trying to be. I even covered that song live for a little bit. But I don't hate any of those bands that I said. I think they're all amazing.
Back. I don't. Yeah.
It's just like,
it doesn't resonate.
Yeah, and that doesn't like mean. There's probably even other bands. There's bands I like songs from that are amazing that I might have had moments with them. You can't have a moment with everything, and sometimes it's just like how. That's why reviewing a record's kind of funny because like how many times have you listened to your favorite songs, and some days you're kind of like, huh, and other days you're like you could be crying or feeling like it's connected. You're in the Matrix, and you're like stopping the bullets. Yeah.
So, and then there's groups that I dislike and songs at least that I intensely hate, but then every once in a while I hear that song coming through the window or something random, and I'm like, fuck, that sounds really good. And that happened recently, and I can't remember. Awesome, wish I could remember what song it was, and I was like, fuck, do I like? Maybe I kind of like.
Do I like this now?
Yeah, like
that's what I'm waiting for. That's what I'm. It's definitely come close on some of those. They've all turned around a little bit, except for Led Zeppelin.
Are people tempted to try to turn you like
they're
play
always
stuff like
so
let me play you.
Blown away. That's the last thing they would think that I would say. And then some people are like, you know what? I get it. But still, I want to make it super clear that I think they're amazing musicians. I feel like I'm just waiting for the hate I'm going to get on this. They're amazing musicians.
You said
some
Zeppelin
amazing songs.
And Radiohead.
I just mean like the 3-hour show, some of the long jams, some of like the vibe they went for. It's not like what I'd want to play.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'd rather, look at my top songs over here.
Yeah,
like,
what do you got? Top songs.
Like I'd rather put on Philip Glass String Quartet No. 3. Like, I'd rather hear that.
We have to pause for another quick break, and then we'll come back with the rest of my conversation with Albert Hammond Jr. We're back with Albert Hammond Jr. Do you think your critical voice makes you better? Like if you were being honest with yourself?
I don't. It's the same way I don't think. So people, I think, it's fun to do drugs, but people do drugs in creating because it's like, I need to be like dark, right?
Yeah.
I think you do need your shadow and your dark side to create, but you don't need to do drugs or be angry or have that stuff to enter the shadow. I mean, the shadow's there all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's just embracing the shadow and like nurturing it and like sucking that creative. That's where like creation really is in there, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes I actually feel I feel like two different people, like how I live my life and then how I am when I create. It takes a second to get in. Like the guy who pays the bills or drives or, I like put stuff in my calendar. I'm organized. That guy is not the guy creating. The guy creating is like more of a mess.
Does one feel more like you?
They both feel like me. But in fact, I used to always tell my therapist, like, I want to be like Indiana Jones, but part of me feels like Indiana Jones who's in the plastic box in the toy store. Like, I'm doing it, but I'm not actually living it, if that makes sense. Like, I used to be worse, and now I'm a little looser, but like, I was like I need to somehow enjoy the process more than the end result. I noticed it in like getting something ready in my house from moving. It's like you just want to get it done, but then when it's done, there's something else you have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
if you don't enjoy getting there, that's all you have is the getting there.
That's all we're all doing always. And so when you think about the creative, like there's these two people, the person who pays bills and drives and puts stuff in your calendar, and then there's the creative person. The creative person, or the person who's creating, is that the same person that goes like on tour when you tour?
No, the person on, maybe sometimes on stage you can get lost in it, but being on stage isn't like, people like, oh, I just got flow and I just got caught into it. At least for me, stage is like the way someone describes playing a tennis match. Fucking nailing it, gonna beat this guy, to just breathe. Just because you didn't do something right, you don't fall apart while looking like you belong there. Never ever showing that. But so it's like this inner thing that's just like, the amount of times I've had an amazing show has gone from like, start strong, I feel like I'm falling apart, and then I come back, and then something happens and you get lost, and then where you want to push the crowd away, they go, and then you're able to bring them back. And at the end, you have more of them than when you started. So you feel like you did something right in there. That's usually like, it's a show is like a whole experience.
Yeah.
That's why you're so trained afterwards. It's like, it's never just like, I went out there and did my thing. I wish. That sounds amazing. If doing your thing is a 90-minute movie, then yes, that's what happens, with ups and downs and curveballs. And like your show is like your whole mix. And so like, and sometimes you're not, this is more when I'm doing solo stuff, but you're not at 100% because you can't be. You're on tour. You're never going to be. It's about learning how to be at like 70%, but doing the show like you were at 100.
It really is like an
And that's
like,
kind of like the secret to playing live music. Because it's never like you're at home. I meditated for 3 weeks, took the perfect shower. My hair is sitting just right. Let's just go do a show. It's like that, except the next day you have to do another one.
And you have to somehow get to the next.
You know, and you're just like, especially on the solo stuff, you're tired. Nothing that you want it to do is come out totally right.
Has your relationship with touring changed over time? Like, does it evolve? Is it like at first it was really fun and then it became a drag and then
It's
it was
always
fun
fun.
again?
It's never. I'm not jaded enough to not enjoy my life. I felt like I was built to be a part of a traveling circus.
Cool.
Like, I do love it in many ways. You are going to not like things that you love at some point.
Yeah.
Inevitable.
Yeah.
Still, there's been moments where like I love music and I would write songs and record them even if I didn't play music anymore, because I just can't. It's just, I just do it. I don't like, I'm going to sit and write. They just like come out, right? I don't think I could stop that. But there's been moments where I've been like, man, imagine if I like didn't play music or something like that. So, but I don't like dislike tour. And I've learned that the longer you do it, it's different solo, and the strokes of the luxury is that we have a big fan base, and so like it's more comfortable to tour. It's cool to reach new areas that you haven't, even though you've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it also, when you've been doing it that much, the high isn't so much from playing a new song and having no one know it. The high is like watching how people are absorbing stuff that you know well and that they know, and then feeding off of that energy.
Yeah.
Playing a song that is clearly making a crowd all feel nostalgic. How could that, if that's jading you, then I don't know, you got to go do something, because that's like,
Beautiful.
that's a magical thing. I feel lucky. I wanted to be part of that fabric when I was a teenager and I fell in love with music. And now to even have glimpses of being part of that fabric is, it's unreal.
It's really cool that
unreal.
You can have that perspective on it while doing. It's like you still maintain the fan perspective in a way.
I feel like you have to, though. I was saying that it's like your innocence from it is going to get beaten out pretty fast just by the game you have to play.
Mm-hmm.
All business is a game, right?
Yeah.
And then when you fall in love with music, you have no idea what that game is, but it's not what you think it is. And it's not for the love of it. There's stuff that you have to, do. But that's okay if you get to like create and do other things. Basically, everything has a price.
Yeah.
At some point, small, big, very rarely is that I create something so magical that there's still, even when you do that, there's still some price somewhere.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Maybe you get tired of doing it, and so you have to rediscover how to not feel tired from it.
Yeah. How much input do you have on planning a tour? Like, do you get to like say like, I don't really want to go there, or do like a festival?
Like in my solo stuff or the Stroke stuff?
I guess
Both.
both.
Yeah, I mean, touring wise, I would say Julian has the most say. I would say most singers have the most say about it. Unfortunately, that's kind of like, or fortunately, whatever. That's like,
makes sense.
That's part of it. I mean, I like festivals as like a cherry. You know, to me, they're fun when you're doing your own thing, and then you get to do them because they're like this crazy thing. When you just do them, it can get dark because it's how you have to look at it. Like a festival crowd, you're going to play a certain kind of set list. You got 75 minutes. You're going to play a set list that appeals more to a mass. You're not really going to take them too far. It's too big. That's not the point of it.
Yeah.
That's not the vibe of the party.
Yeah.
It's not like a Andy Warhol party and there's a bunch of weird people invited. It's like a very, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then at your own show, you could have a little run of 2 or 3 songs that you're almost purposely pushing people away to then bring them back, or like this is where it's going to dip down, and then we can ramp it back up at the end. And you can do stuff like that. You can play some weirder songs for you, or do something. You can do a jam. You can just have more fun with it. So I think when you're doing that, eventually, like I said with anything, it becomes boring. And so playing the straight ahead thing for the giant audience, you're like, wow, I just played in front of 60,000 people. What a rush.
Yeah.
So that variety is helpful. So I always just try to say, if you're saying touring, I always try to like want to have that balanced. But between management and, you know, they figure it out well. My stuff's different. It's like I'd like to tour places, but it's unfortunately, this is what I tried to do on this record, was to have less of a band and have more stuff on tracks and create, since I'm not a band, I can create a weird world of like a 3-piece band with tracks and just have it be like weird or weirder than, less straightforward than just having, like I've always had, just players play everything. I was just trying to be able to afford to go on tour. It's very hard. Sometimes people are like, why don't you come here or come there? It's like, I always debate how to talk about this because it's not a complaint. It's more just like realities of,
it's reality.
Of like the band never feels stable enough to just sit there and enjoy.
Okay.
Like I never feel like, I never sigh. It's always like, hold your breath. That's not negative, positive. It's just like my personality's reaction to this thing I exist in, the business, right? You can't like, you realize that touring in some ways is a luxury.
Yeah.
Which is great. You're a band that has an audience, like be grateful.
Yeah.
Because that's like, and if you can then make money from that, that's an amazing gift. There's other bands that would want to do that and just like can't.
I mean, I'd imagine people could understand, because even if you work a regular job and you have to take a business trip, you know, if the money's not right, it's like,
yeah, damn, but it's always someone else paying. Musicians, like actors have businesses, like we are the business.
Yeah.
Like even at the highest level, like who's the biggest, they gross crazy amounts, the Stones, right?
Yeah.
Right? They're still paying themselves.
Right.
No company, they might get an advance from a big company and stuff like that to advance it.
Right.
But they're still at a loss, U2, for like 6-8 months of that touring, even though like they're like the biggest band. There's no like, but when they make a movie, the actors or directors, they're not at a loss.
You're right. Right. Right.
It's just the big company paying for it.
Right.
So it feels a little different in that way. I mean, maybe that's what makes musicians a little cooler than actors. Sorry, guys. Just gonna get outside here and just have a line of actors. I heard what you said, and I'm mildly offended. I can take my mildly offended. The Albert Hammond Jr. story.
A lot of people mad at you.
Just thanks for nothing. The Albert Hammond Jr. story. That was fun, man. I appreciate it.
And I appreciate you. Thank you for the years of music and the new solo record. Can't wait to hear the second half.
Oh man, I can't wait to just have it out.
Thanks to Albert Hammond Jr. for chatting about his new double album, Melodies On Hiatus. You can hear it along with all of our favorite songs from him and The Strokes on a playlist at brokenrecordpodcast.com. Broken Record is produced with help from Leah Rose, Jason Gambrell, Ben Tolliday, Nisha Venkat, Jordan McMillan, and Eric Sandler. Our editor is Sophie Crane. Broken Record is a production of Pushkin Industries. And if you like the show, remember to share, rate, and review us on your podcast app. Our theme music's by Kenny Beats. I'm Justin Richmond.